For this crochet project, you're going to need your 5mm crochet hook, also a tapestry needle, and a pair of scissors. I'm also going to be having my tape measure, and I'm going to show you how to measure out the size for the blanket that you want. The yarn that I'm using is Bernat Baby Sport. Here's some information about this yarn. It's a light yarn 3. Here's how much is available in this style of yarn, 100% acrylic. And I'm using this white colored same style of yarn. The other color is baby pink, and this one is baby white. I wanted to point out for beginners that you can choose different styles of yarn, but it's better not to combine two different styles of yarn. For example, you don't want to use this and then use a Red Heart or Caron 1 pound yarn with this yarn, because different yarn choices will affect the size of your blanket. I am going to be making a security blanket on video tutorial that measures 14 inches by 17 inches. So the 14 inches is going to be the width. So I'm going to show you how to make the chain to get a 14-inch width. So I'm taking my pink colored yarn first to start, and I'm going to make my slip knot. So you just take your yarn, fold it over on itself to form a loop. Then take your crochet hook, go ahead and go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb, then yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch down that slip knot. And then we're going to go ahead and start making a chain. And you're going to make your chain the length of 14 inches. So I'm going to show you 4 chains on video tutorial. Just yarn over, go ahead and turn your hook upside down and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, and 4. So go ahead, finish your chain so that it measures 14 inches. When you come back, I'll show you how long my chain ended up being. So I'm starting with about a chain of 55, which measures about 14.5 inches long. So I'm making it a little bit larger than the average security blanket, which is about 14 inches by 17 inches. So for mine, I stopped on 55, a chain of 55, because I want to end up with an even number. So multiple of 2 for this pattern. And you're going to end up, after you make your chain of 3, to move up to the next row, you're going to end up with a stitch count of 56. So for now, you want to start with a chain of 55. If you're following along with me and making the same security blanket as me. If you're making a different size security blanket, at this point you want to end up with an odd number, because we want an even number for this pattern, for this particular pattern, because you want it to be a multiple of 2. So I finished my chain of 55. Now I'm going to move up to the first row. So I'm not going to count this chain as the first row. Our first row is going to be 1 double crochet in every stitch back across. So you're going to hold that last chain that you made, and in my case that was my 55th chain. So I'm going to hold that last stitch, and then I'm going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as the first double crochet for your first row. Now you're going to make a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook, which is the stitch that you're holding. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to go into that 4th chain from the hook, you're going to bring up a loop, and then you're going to make your double crochet. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 of the loops. You have 2 loops remaining. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the remaining loop. Now you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch back across. So you yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, make your double crochet, and then you're just going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch back across. I'll make 2 more with you. So go ahead, finish making your double crochets, 1 double crochet into every stitch back across, and then come back. This is how your work should look after you finish the 1 double crochet in every stitch back across. Now you just want to double check your stitch count. So you want to count. If you're a beginner, I would recommend counting your stitches so that you end up with an even edge and you don't end up with any waves in your work. So I'm just going to show you how I count my stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 1, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. Now we're going to move up to our second row, which is going to contain our cross stitches. So you're going to start with a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to turn your work. And you can see here that you have a little bit of an upslope, and then on the previous row you have your double crochet and how it lines up. You're not going to work into this stitch, you're going to work into the next 2 stitches. I placed a hot pink yarn marker into the next stitch because you're going to skip that stitch and work a double crochet into the next stitch over. So you're going to skip the next stitch, yarn over, go into the next stitch over, make sure you grab both loops of that stitch, then you're going to bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 of the loops. You have 2 loops remaining. Go ahead and yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the 2 remaining loops. Then you're going to make a double crochet into the skipped stitch. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to go between the 2 double crochet stitches, the first chain 3 and then the double crochet that you just made. You're going to go behind that skipped stitch and under both of the loops of the stitch. Then you're going to bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 of the loops. You have 2 loops remaining. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through those 2 remaining loops. And you just completed a cross stitch. So here is your first chain 3, and then you have your second double crochet that you made, and then the double crochet that you made in the skip stitch, which creates a cross stitch. Then you're just going to repeat the cross stitches all the way across for the second row. I'm going to make a couple of them with you. So I went ahead and put the hot pink yarn marker into the skipped stitch again, so you can see the stitch that I'm skipping. I'm going to yarn over, skip that stitch, go into the next stitch over. You can see how I grab both loops. I'm going to bring up a loop, make my double crochet, then I'm going to work a double crochet into the skipped stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go between the cross stitch and that double crochet, go behind the skipped stitch, and then I'm going to come under both of those loops of the stitch. I'm going to bring up a loop, and then I'm going to make my double crochet. And you can see how it's creating a beautiful cross stitch for you. I'm going to make 2 more with you. I'm going to skip the next stitch, go into this next stitch over, create a double crochet, and then I'm going to make a double crochet into the skipped stitch. Now I'm going to make 1 more cross stitch on video tutorial for you. So now I just wanted to show you each of the cross stitches that I made. And because you ended up with an even number of stitches on the previous row, you should have 3 stitches left. 1, 2, and then the 3rd stitch on the end. So you're going to make your last cross stitch. And then make your last double crochet in the last stitch. Now you're going to count the number of cross stitches, and you can see how I always start with my chain of 3. So here's my initial chain of 3 to start. And then I have all of the cross stitches, and then I end with a double crochet. You should always have a starting chain of 3 and end with a double crochet. This will help you when you start making the border for your blanket. Now you just need to count the number of cross stitches. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 cross stitches. So I have 27 cross stitches, and every time you get to the cross stitch row, you should have the same number of cross stitches that you had for this row, which was 27 for me. Now you're ready to move up to the next row. So I'm going to start with a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then go ahead and turn your work, and we're going to start our 3rd row. So for the 3rd row, this first chain 3 will count as a double crochet. And we're going to make a half double crochet into the next stitch. So here you can see that the chain 3 is directly over the previous row's chain 3, and you have a little bit of an upslope here. You're not going to work into that stitch. You're going to go into the next stitch over. So since this first chain 3 represents a double crochet, you're going to make a half double crochet into the next stitch. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to go into the next stitch, make sure that you go under both loops of the stitch, you're going to bring up a loop, you have 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through all 3 loops to complete a half double crochet. Trying to make sure I get under, kind of fragmented there a little bit, the yarn. So now I just completed a half double crochet. So my next stitch will be a double crochet. And you're going to alternate double crochet in one stitch and then half double crochet into the next stitch all the way across to finish the row. So now I just finished a double crochet, so I'm going to make a half double crochet into the next stitch, yarn over, go into that next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through all 3 to complete the half double crochet. So I'm going to make one more set with you and then I'll let you finish making your stitches. So the first one will be a double crochet in the next stitch. And then a half double crochet into the next stitch. So go ahead, finish alternating, double crochet, half double crochet all the way back to across this row. So now I've reached the end of the row. This is how my work is looking so far. And I just finished a half double crochet and I have 2 stitches left. Now, like I told you before, you always want to end with a double crochet. So even though you're making a double crochet into the next stitch, you still want to make a double crochet into that last stitch. So we're making 1 double crochet into each of the last 2 stitches. So again, you'll see that I ended with a double crochet and then I started with my chain 3. You always want to do that. Start with your chain of 3 and then end with the double crochet in the last stitch. So now, if you're a beginner, I would recommend counting all of your stitches. Since I counted with you the first time and you know how to count your stitches, I'm not going to count with you this time, but I'm going to tell you when you come back how many stitches I have in mine. For mine, I counted 56 stitches, which is exactly what you want. So now I'm ready to move up to the next row. So you're going to chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to turn your work. And just like the previous row, you're going to alternate double crochet and half double crochet all the way across. So this first chain 3 will count as your double crochet, and then you're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch over for your half double crochet. And then double crochet into the next stitch. And you're going to repeat this all the way across to the end of the row. And this is our 4th row. I'm just going to work a couple more with you. By now you pretty much have it down, or you should. So double crochet, half double crochet, and then I just keep alternating all the way across to the end of the row. So you can see the gorgeous textures created in the blanket with these stitches. It's really turning out beautiful. And again, when I get to the end of the row, I have a half double crochet and I have 2 stitches remaining. So I'm going to make 1 double crochet into each of those remaining stitches because, again, I always want to end with the double crochet stitch. So you always start with your chain 3 and then end with your double crochet stitch. And then this will create a nice border because you'll always have that double crochet on the end, which will help you when you finish and create the border for your blanket. So again, I want to make sure that you count your stitches. You should still have a 56 stitch count. So here you have the first row was just double crochet, the second row was your cross stitch row, and then you had the next row, which is the 3rd row, of alternating 1 double crochet, half double crochet, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th row, alternating half double crochet, double crochet, and then you're going to make 1 more row, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th row of alternating double crochet and half double crochet. So again, to start the next row, you're going to chain 3, turn your work, That first chain 3 is going to count as your first double crochet, so we'll make a half double crochet into that next stitch. Double crochet into the next stitch, and you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way across to finish this row. So half double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. So go ahead, finish this row, and then come back. So I just finished my third row of alternating half double crochet and double crochet. You can see how my initial starting edge is straight and the ending edge is straight and the center lies flat. That's what you want when creating this pattern. So I just want to go over the rows with you again. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. The first row was just double crochet. The second row was your cross stitch row. Then your third, fourth, and fifth rows were 3 rows of alternating half double crochet and double crochet. So now we're going to make another cross stitch row. And again, you're going to start the row with a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3, and then turn your work. So again, you're going to make your cross stitch row. So I started with my chain 3. I'm going to skip the next stitch and make a double crochet into the next stitch. Then I'm going to make a double crochet into the skipped stitch. To complete the cross stitch. And remember that this cross stitch row should have the same number of cross stitches as your previous cross stitch row when you finish this row. So again, I finished with 27 cross stitches. I started with my chain 3 to start the row, and you'll notice that the cross stitches line up also with the previous row's cross stitches. So the number of your cross stitches is also the exact same. So I have 27 cross stitches, which is the exact same number of cross stitches on my previous row. So before you progress or keep going on with your blanket, you have to make sure that your numbers are matching up and that your edges are remaining straight and that your work is remaining flat. That way you don't get very far in the blanket and then realize that it's starting to narrow or it's starting to curve or it's starting to wave or anything like that. And that is all there is to this pattern. You're going to make your cross stitches row, cross stitch row, then you're going to make your 3 rows of alternating double crochet and then half double crochet and then your cross stitch row. Now when you finish your last row, you should finish it with the double crochet in every stitch. That way it matches the bottom of your blanket. So the bottom of the blanket will have 1 double crochet in every stitch, and then the top of your blanket will have 1 double crochet in every stitch. So now I'll have you go ahead and continue. Your next row will be chain 3, you're going to turn your work, and then you're going to make your half double crochet into the next stitch. And then double crochet, and you're going to alternate. And then remember your last 2 stitches, you want to make sure that you'll probably end at the half double crochet. So you'll have 1 double crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. You're going to make 3 rows of the alternating half double crochet, starting with the chain of 3 and then ending with a double crochet. And then you're going to make your cross stitch row. Now once you've done a few rows and you've gotten the pattern down, some helpful things so you don't have to count, because I know that counting every stitch can get monotonous. You can notice patterns. For example, here I just started with my chain 3 and then I made my half double crochet into the next stitch. Your half double crochet should be lining up with the double crochet in your previous row. And then for my next stitch, the double crochet, I'll notice that it's lining up with the half double crochet from the previous row. So if that's not happening, then I know that I might have done something wrong on one of the previous rows. The other pattern that you'll notice is my last 2 stitches. You should always end with 2 stitches remaining. I just finished my half double crochet, so I'm going to make my double crochet into the next stitch. And then you always want to end with a double crochet, so I'll make 1 double crochet into that last stitch on the end. So if there's a deviation from that pattern in one of your rows, then you know you might have done something wrong, and then you can just double check your work. So now I'm just going to show you, I am on my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th row now, which is going to be my cross stitch row. So I started with double crochet, my second row was a cross stitch row, 3 rows of alternating double crochet, half double crochet, then my cross stitch row, and then 3 rows of alternating half double crochet, double crochet. And that's all there is to this pattern for this baby blanket, which creates a beautiful textured baby blanket. Also, you'll notice that my edges are staying nice and straight, which is what you want, by ending with a double crochet every time. And then every time you're starting with a chain of 3, so you're creating this beautiful straight edge on the other side as well. And then your work should be lying flat. Make sure that you're pretty consistent as far as the tension on your work, meaning paying attention to the loop that's around your crochet hook, that it's not too loose as you make your stitches and it's not too tight as you create your stitches. And be consistent throughout your work as far as the tension or the loop that you have on your baby blanket and your stitches. So I just finished my 34th row. You can see how I have a nice straight edge, and I also have a nice straight edge on the other side. And since I'm making mine 17 inches, close to 17 inches, I'm stopping after my last cross stitch. This is the 34th row. So for my 35th row, I'm just going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch across, just like my beginning row, which was 1 double crochet in every stitch. So for mine, I stopped with my cross stitch on the 34th row. And depending on the yarn you choose, you want to make sure that you measure it. If you're making the security blanket, it should measure approximately 17 inches. And it's actually going to end up a little bit larger because we're going to make the border. So now for my last row, I'm just going to chain 3. And then I'm going to turn my work. And then I'm going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch across. Again, you're not going to work in this upsloped stitch right below your chain 3. You're going to work in the next stitch over. So just yarn over, go into that next stitch over, bring up a loop. make your double crochet, and then you're just going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch across. And then come back. I'm going to make 1 more with you. So I just finished my last double crochet, did a quick stitch count, and I have exactly 56 stitches, which is the exact stitch count that I maintained for the whole blanket, or security blanket I should say. Now we're ready to make the border. So the first thing you're going to do is just turn your work. So here is the top of the blanket, and we're going to work along the side here. So you're going to turn your work so that the side is facing on top, and the loop where you left off is in the top right corner of the blanket. And I just want to point out that this is the last double crochet that we made on that last row. Right here. And then you can see here's the previous row's double crochet. And we're going to be working in the gap right below the double crochet, or the last stitch on the end. So we're actually going to be working in this gap right below. So the first thing you want to do is go into that first gap and bring up a loop. So this is the first gap below the double crochet. And then you're going to make a single crochet. So yarn over, go through both loops for a single crochet. Then you're going to go in the same gap and bring up a loop. So you're making 2 single crochet into the same gap. And you're going to repeat this all along the side of the blanket. So you're going to go into the next gap right below the double crochet, the last double crochet of the previous row. You're going to bring up a loop and make your single crochet. And you're going to make 1 more single crochet in that same gap. And you're going to repeat this all down the side of the blanket. So 2 single crochet in every stitch down the side of the blanket. And this is what my work looks like so far. So I ended up with 70 stitches total down the side of my blanket. I just finished my last 2 single crochet stitches on that last row. Now we're going to turn and work along the bottom of the blanket. And working along the bottom of the blanket is a little bit easier because you have a 1-to-1 stitch count. So you're not working below a gap like you are on the side of the blanket. So for this corner stitch, you want to make sure that your corner doesn't curl up. And in order to do that, we're going to work into that first stitch, and we're going to make 2 single crochet into that same stitch. And at the same time, we're going to bury that loose yarn end. So go ahead and lay the loose yarn end along the bottom of the blanket. Then this is the yarn attached to the skein that you're going to hold on to. And we're going to go into that first stitch along the bottom. So you go into that top stitch of the first stitch along the bottom. You're going to go behind the loose yarn end, and then you're going to bring up a loop and make your single crochet. And then you're going to make one more single crochet in the same stitch. And we're only going to do that for the corner stitch. And the reason why we do that is to keep that corner flat. So that helps keep that curve on that corner. Now for the rest of the stitches, you're only going to need one single crochet in every stitch across the bottom. So you go into the next stitch, go behind the loose yarn end, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet. And then you're going to make one single crochet in every stitch across the bottom. And then when you reach the opposite side on the bottom, come back and I'll show you what to do next. So continue making one single crochet in every stitch across the bottom. Now you can see how it lays nice and straight, and then the corner lies down flat and makes a nice curved edge on the other side of the blanket. And then I finished my last single crochet in the last stitch along the bottom. So now you're going to turn your work so that you're working along the opposite side. So here's the opposite side. So we're going to work this opposite side the same way that we did on the other side. So we're going to work in the gaps below the double crochets on the ends. So the first thing you're going to do is go into that gap. But before you do that, make sure that in that last double crochet, you can see I have one single crochet made. You need one more in that same stitch. So I'm going to make one more single crochet in that same stitch. Then I'm going to turn my work so that I'm going to work into the gap because I want that corner to lie flat. So I'm going to go into that gap below the double crochet and bring up a loop, make my single crochet, and then I'm going to make another single crochet in the same gap. And then you're just going to continue just like you did the other side. You're going to make two single crochet into the gap below the double crochet. And you should have the same number of stitches that you had on the opposite side. So come back when you reach the end. So I have exactly 70 stitches along the opposite side, which is exactly the same as the opposite side. Both of them have 70 stitches total, or 70 single crochet. Now I just finished the last two single crochet in the gap along the opposite side. Now I'm going to turn my work to go back along the top of the blanket. So now I can make two single crochet into that first stitch along the top. Then I can make, oops, sorry about that. So I just made two single crochet into the stitch, first stitch along the top. Then I'm going to make one single crochet in every stitch back to where I started. So go ahead, finish making one single crochet in every stitch across the top of your blanket. So I finished working one single crochet in every stitch across the top of the blanket. And now I have one stitch left. So I'm going to make 2 single crochet into that last stitch. Then I'm going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over, which is the first stitch along the side of the blanket. I'm going to go into that stitch. I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. So now you're going to bring up your new yarn color. I'm going to use the white color yarn. So I'm going to bring up a loop. Then you can go ahead and chain 1. Then just take and cut the previous color that you were using. In my case it was the pink one. And then tie a knot. Then we're ready to make our popcorn stitches. I'm just going to leave my loose yarn ends for now. I'm not going to bury them. I'll bury them later with my tapestry needle. So we're going to be working our popcorn stitches down the side of the blanket. The first thing you're going to do is slip stitch into that first stitch. So actually, I'm going to make a single crochet into that first stitch. So go into that first stitch on the side, bring up a loop, make your single crochet, and then chain 2. 1, 2. That's going to count as our first double crochet. And we want a total of 5 double crochet in the same stitch. So this first, I'm going to call it the chain 3. This first one is our first double crochet, and we're going to make 4 more double crochet in the same stitch. So I made 5 double crochet in the same stitch. Now you're going to leave a little bit of a loop, and you're going to take your crochet hook and go into the top stitch of that first chain 3, your first double crochet that you made. So just take your crochet hook, go into that top stitch, then you're going to take and grab the loop that you left. You can cinch down the loop a little bit. And you're going to take that loop and bring it through that first stitch that you made. Then you're going to chain 2. 1, 2. Then you're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So here you can see the next stitch and the next stitch. So you're going to skip the next 2 stitches and make a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Now you're going to make 4 more double crochet for a total of 5 double crochet in the same stitch. After you finish your 5 double crochet, leave a little bit of a loop, You're going to go into the top stitch of that first double crochet that you made. You're going to grab the loop. Go ahead and cinch down the loop a little bit around the hook. And then you're going to take that loop and bring it through that first stitch. Then you're going to chain 2. 1, 2. And you're going to repeat this all down the side of your blanket. And you can see these cute little popcorn stitches that you're creating for a border. So now you're going to skip 2 stitches again and make a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And again, you're going to make 4 more double crochet in the same stitch for a total of 5 double crochet in the same stitch. And again, make a little bit of a loop. Go into the top stitch of that first double crochet that you made. You're going to grab that loop, cinch it down, and bring that loop through that first stitch that you made. Then you're going to chain 2. And you're going to repeat this all the way down the side. And this is how my work is looking so far. So I'll make 1 more with you, and then I'll let you finish making your popcorn stitches down the side of your blanket. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and make a double crochet into that 3rd stitch. And then I'm going to make 4 more double crochet in the same stitch for a total of 5 double crochet. Chain 2 and repeat. Skip 2 stitches, make a double crochet into that 3rd stitch, and then make your popcorn stitch. So go ahead, finish making your popcorn stitches all down the side, and then come back. Now I finished the popcorns down the side of the blanket, and I ended up with 23 total popcorn stitches on the side. Now I've reached my first corner, and I just want to show you what differences there are with the corner stitch. So here I just finished my last popcorn on the side, and I made a chain of 2. But this time, instead of skipping 2 stitches, you're only going to skip 1 stitch. So here I'm going to skip 1 stitch and then make a double crochet into the 2nd stitch. And this is only around the corner because you want your corner to lay flat. So you're going to work it the same way. You work 5 double crochet into the same stitch. Then you're still going to go into that first stitch, grab the loop, cinch it down, not too tight. Go ahead and pull it through the first stitch, just like you did the other popcorn stitches, and then chain 2. 1, 2. Then you're going to turn your work so that the bottom is facing up, because this is where you're going to work the popcorn stitch all along the bottom of the blanket. So again, you're only going to skip 1 stitch and work your double crochet into that second stitch. And you're going to again work 5 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 2. And then you're going to skip 1 stitch. Work your 5 double crochet into the next stitch. And then chain 2. Then you're able to skip 2 stitches. So you're just going to skip 1 stitch around the corner, and you can see how it lays flat because you skipped 1 stitch for the popcorn stitches around the corner. Then you're going to resume skipping 2 stitches and then making your popcorn stitch into the 3rd stitch. So now you know how to make your popcorn stitch border, and you know what to do to work the popcorn stitches around the corners. So go ahead and finish completing the border around your blanket and then come back. So now I've finished going all around my blanket, and I finished my last popcorn stitch along the top. Now I'm going to skip 1 stitch on the side and then make my last popcorn into the next stitch to finish up the last corner. Then I'm going to make a chain of 2 and then just slip stitch into the top stitch of the back of the popcorn stitch. So I'm going to go into that stitch right behind the popcorn stitch and then make my slip stitch. And then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury your loose yarn end. Now you can take your loose yarn ends and put them onto your tapestry needle, and you're just going to weave the loose yarn end into your crochet work. And I like to go a couple of different directions to make sure it's nice and buried. And then once it's buried, you can go ahead and cut the loose yarn end. So go ahead, bury all of your loose yarn ends and then come back. Now I just want to show you what it looks like. Turned out gorgeous. You can see how the edges are really straight. Just going to give you a close-up here of the popcorn stitches and the elegant design in the center. So for beginners, nobody would believe that you created this masterpiece as a first blanket. It really turns out gorgeous. So you could either stop here for your security baby blanket. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to add your crochet button. So now I just want to show you a close-up of the back of the blanket. See, this is what the stitch looks like on the back. And again, this is what it looks like on the front. So now you're either finished with your blanket or you can continue on. I'm going to show you how to make the heart and the crochet button that will hold either your rattle or your teether. For the heart and the button, I use my Red Heart Super Saver yarn. This is some of my leftover yarn, and I'm using Shocking Pink. Here's some more information about this yarn. The first thing I'm going to show you how to make is the crochet button. So I'm still using my 5mm crochet hook, and we're going to make the magic circle. So you're going to take the yarn, you're going to drape it across your 4 fingers, use your thumb to stabilize, then wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers, and then hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Then you're going to take your crochet hook, you're going to go right under those 2 loops around your middle fingers. You're going to bring up a loop. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then go through the loop for a slip knot. Then you're going to make 6 single crochet into the magic circle. So go back under those 2 loops, bring up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then go through both loops for a single crochet. And then we're going to make 5 more. So I have a total of 6 single crochet on my magic circle. I'm going to take my forefinger and thumb and hold the base of the 6 single crochet. So you can see how I'm holding my crochet hook in my right hand. I have these 2 loops on the opposite side. I'm going to take and pull on one of them. If it doesn't close, let go and pull on the other one, but this one's closing, so I'm going to gently close it. Don't worry if you don't get it completely closed. Then take that loose yarn end and pull on it. Then take and turn your work so that we can work into the first stitch. So in that first stitch, you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So 2 single crochet into the same stitch. And then you're going to make 2 single crochet in every stitch around until you have a total of 12 stitches. So that's 4. 6. 8, 10, and 12. So now you have a total of 12 stitches in the round. Now you can take and turn your work over and pull on that loose yarn end on the back to gently close the center of the magic circle. Then turn your work around, and you're going to take your yarn marker and place it right where you left off. And I usually just use one of my scraps of yarn since I have so many of them. Then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So I've reached my yarn marker. I'm going to leave the yarn marker in place. You can see I've completed 1 round. You're going to keep on going. So you're still going to have 1 single crochet in every stitch around until you've completed a total of 3 rounds, and then come back. So now you can see I finished 3 rounds, 1, 2, 3, of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So now you can go ahead and take your yarn marker out. Go ahead and stuff the loose yarn end into the center of your button, and then we're going to go ahead and close it. So now you're going to make decrease stitches until you're closed. So then you go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on your crochet hook. Go ahead and yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a decrease stitch. And what we're doing is we are decreasing the number of stitches in the round until it's almost closed, and then we're going to slip stitch it closed. So you're going to continue making decrease stitches all the way around until the button is almost closed, and then I will slip stitch it closed with you. So I'll make one more decrease stitch, or single crochet 2 stitches together. So now this is what it looks like on top. You can skip a stitch and then go into the next stitch and then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook to complete a slip stitch. And you're going to repeat that until the button is closed. So I'm going to make one more. Actually, it's pretty closed. So now I'm going to finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew the button onto your blanket. So here is your crochet button, and we're going to place a heart on top of this button. So here's the back. So for the heart, we're going to make the magic circle again. I'm still using my 5mm crochet hook. So I'm going to bring up a loop for my slip knot. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for your slip knot. Now we're going to make this a little bit different. So go ahead and go under those 2 loops, bring up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. Go ahead and make your single crochet. But now, after that single crochet, you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. So that gives you 4 stitches, which also represents your first treble crochet. So this counts as your first treble crochet, and we're going to make 4 more into the magic circle for a total of 5. So you're going to yarn over twice. Then you're going to go into the magic circle. You're going to bring up a loop, and then you're going to have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 of the loops. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 loops. Now you have 2 loops left on your hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the 2 remaining loops to complete your second treble crochet. So now, yarn over twice, go into the magic circle, bring up a loop, complete your treble crochet. So now I have 3, and I need 2 more. So now you've completed a total of 5 treble crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we need 4 double crochet. So yarn over, go into the magic circle, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 loops, 2 loops remaining, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the 2 remaining loops to complete a double crochet. Now we need 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. So now we have a total of 4 double crochet. And what's nice about the magic circle is you can move the stitches over. Now you're going to make a chain of 2. So chain 2. 1, 2. Then you're going to make 4 double crochet. After the 4 double crochet, you're going to make 5 treble crochet. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet, then you're going to take your forefinger and thumb and you're going to hold the base of all of the stitches, and you're going to take one of the loops on the opposite side and gently pull. If it doesn't close, let go and pull on the other one. Then take the loose yarn end and pull on that. And then you can see how you're starting to form the heart. So you just want to take and pull on the loose yarn end on the back to cinch down the center. Then you can take and make a slip stitch into that first stitch of the first single crochet we made in the treble stitch, that first treble stitch, for a slip stitch. So just yarn over and then bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off, just yarn over and then pull enough yarn through to sew this heart onto the button. So now what we want to do is take our tapestry needle, put it onto that long loose yarn end that we just made, and then you want to go right through the center of the heart. And then you're going to cinch down the heart. And then go ahead and tie a knot on the back with the loose yarn end on the back to kind of cinch the heart shape down. And then your heart is ready to sew onto your crochet button. So now you have your crochet button. This is the top, and you can see the center here of the magic circle. So you're going to take your long yarn end that you left for sewing into your tapestry needle and go right through the center, just the top of the button, and then sew the heart in place right on top. Then when you're happy with how you sewed it onto the button, you can take and exit on the back of the heart with both loose yarn ends and then tie a knot. Then you can take your tapestry needle and just bury the loose yarn ends. You can just go right where you tied your knot and then come out the bottom of the button and then just trim the loose yarn ends. Now we're going to make the strap. So you just take the same colored yarn, you're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop, take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, cinch down the loop, hold the loop, the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb, then yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for a slip knot. Then we're going to make a chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the width of the strap is going to be a chain of 5. Go ahead and hold that last stitch with your middle finger and thumb and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet for the next row. Now make a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook, which is the stitch that you're holding. So yarn over, go into that 4th chain from the hook, bring up a loop, make your double crochet, and then you're going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch back across, which will give you a stitch count of 6 because we made that additional chain 3. Now you're going to chain 3, then turn your work, and you're not going to work into that first stitch at the base of the chain 3. You're going to go into the next stitch over for your first double crochet, and then you're just going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch back across. And you're going to repeat this until you have the length that you want for your strap. Each row should have the same number of stitches. So mine was 6 when I started and I still have 6. So you just keep repeating, chain 3, turn your work, and then 1 double crochet into each stitch across. So I made mine a total of 7 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm going to make the buttonhole loop. So you're going to make a chain. After you finish your last double crochet, you're going to make a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to take and turn your work, and you're going to make a slip stitch into the top stitch of the opposite double crochet on the opposite side. So go into that top stitch of the double crochet on the opposite side, make your slip stitch, just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. So you can see how you created a little buttonhole here. So go ahead and bury this loose yarn end. Now you're ready to get your button, the heart button, and you can take the long loose yarn end that you have on the back of the button, and you want to sew your button on the side that's the opposite side of the button loop. So go ahead and sew your button onto the opposite side. Tangling my loose yarn in there. So I'm going to go on the opposite side and just sew my button in place. After your button is sewn in place, you can go ahead and tie a knot on the back. Then you can go ahead and bury the small loose yarn end. Then you take your blanket and decide which corner you want to sew your strap onto. For mine, I'm sewing it in the top left corner. After you make sure you have it nice and secure, you can take and tie a knot on the back side of the blanket and then just bury your loose yarn ends. So for mine, to bury the loose yarn ends, I just take my tapestry needle and then I go right where I tied the knot, back through the button and the heart. Actually, don't go through the heart, just go through the button, out underneath the heart, and then just trim the loose yarn end carefully. Then you can take your rattle or your teether, put it onto the strap, and then just take and bring the heart button through the little buttonhole loop that you had. Now your adorable security blanket is all finished and you have this cute little heart-shaped button strap that you can attach a rattle to, or you can take and attach your favorite teether right onto the security blanket.